Hello sweet friend, my name is Maike, and in this video I would like to share with you my currently inked for winter. I have found that I enjoy picking a handful of colors for each season, and so I do a little bit of an overhaul of my pens and inks when I feel like the mood is shifting. That doesn't mean that I don't have other pens inked or that I don't empty out certain pens while I do this overhaul. But today in this swatching session, I'm going to focus on specifically those couple of inks that I have picked out for winter. So we are swatching in this Tomoe River notebook today. This has 68 GSM cream Tomoe River paper, and it's an older notebook that I've had for a couple of years, so this is older stock. It's lovely. For our first color, we are starting out with Sesame Oil by Lennon Toolbar. I've had this ink for several months now, and I'm still not quite sure if we're friends or not. And the reason being, it is a lovely color, as you'll see, but it loses some of its saturation when it dries, and in my humble opinion, that's just a little sad. And I picked this for my winter lineup because I feel like it has the color of deer far off in the distance on a snowy landscape, or the color of dry branches holding onto snow. And I have the color inked in this Asvine P20 with a medium nib, and it flows well, yeah. So this is Lennon Toolbar. See, and I wish the color would stay as it is right here, where it has more yellow undertones and more of a rich, almost going into brown. But once it dries, it gets this grayish cast to it. But I think that Asvine, this is writing and talking at the same time. But I think within this color lineup, it's a really good addition to the palette. I think this lighter, cooler brown is gonna come in really handy. And yeah, I wanted to give it another try, really. And let's see if we can if we can doodle a deer really quick. I'm not quite sure how this is gonna turn out, so don't judge too harshly. I really always enjoy seeing the colors when I use them in doodles, because I doodle so much with my pens. I know that not everybody is doing that, but maybe it's still helpful. And maybe this is more like a fawn. Could give it some spots. Yeah, so this is me trying to give sesame oil another go and see if I can warm up to it. Sometimes that happens, you know. There's colors that don't really wow you in the beginning, but then, you know, you use it for a while and it changes how you view the color. And maybe I'll give you a close-up. Obviously, we'll get back to some close-ups once every color is dry, but yeah, really soft, and I quite like the idea of the color. The next color in the winter lineup is a blue, which I typically don't go for all that much, but for winter I felt like there needed to be a blue. And this is absolutely gorgeous. This is Sailor Shikiori Yukiusagi, and I probably pronounced that not so great. And I did buy it in some cartridges because that way I don't have to buy a whole bottle before trying it out. And I did empty out some of the cartridges into this vial so we can swatch. And I know I said that I'm not the biggest fan of blue colors. Now this is a wonderful blue though. It is so magical. It's quite pale once you put it in a pen, you'll see momentarily. It's almost like a powdery blue, but then it has some beige undertones and beige shading that gives it a really earthy tone to it. And yeah, it's just magical. And I have it inked in my Sailor Pro Gear with a medium nib, and it flows so lovely. So this is a wonderful combination. And I foresee lots of drawing. Yuki. See, I'm doing it all wrong already. Yukiusagi. And I think that's called Snow Bunny or Bunny in the Snow, which I can totally see with this color. I think that's very aptly named. And this is my Sailor Pro Gear, not the Slim. I really do like the thicker body of the Pro Gear. Obviously, they're very expensive, which is why I have this base black model. Yeah, it's really nice. I do feel, and maybe this is specific to the ones that I have, I feel like the jump between my Pro Gear Slim with the 14K nib and a medium fine and this 21K medium is quite a lot. I almost wish there was something in between, which is a little silly because, yeah, that's what the medium fine is for, is to be a step between the fine and the medium, but this is a very wonky. Snowflakes, drawing snowflakes is, I don't know, sometimes a little wonky, but you get it. So I picked this color because to me that just looks like snow-filled winter air. Isn't that so soft and powdery? And you can see there that beigey undertone or the brown in there that gives it this, yeah, earthiness, and how well that complements with the sesame oil. I think that's a lovely combination. Next up is Tono and Lim's Silent Night. And not only is the name very fitting for a winter lineup, but I also felt like this has a maroonish, plumish brown color. And I felt like it made a wonderfully rich partner to the Yukiusagi. So you almost get a red cyan complement going on, but you're just a little bit off with this kind of powdery indigo, and then you get the red within the brown rather than going full on red. I think that's really, really lovely. And I kind of feel like the color reminds me of decadent desserts, sweet treats that make the dark and gray and cold more bearable. And I have this inked in my Sailor Pro Gear Slim with a medium fine nib. This has been my favorite pen this year, I think. If I just take one pen, it's this one. It's just, I don't know, I like the line width of the medium fine. And then I did take a brass shim and made the flow a little wetter. And so it is a really nice, reliable writer now. I will say that this ink is a little dry. Not terribly so, but you can just sort of tell. And then this is the Pro Gear Slim with a medium fine nib. Yeah, this color, I really like this shade of brown, and I don't have anything else in this color, so that's really nice. I do feel like similarly to the sesame oil, that it loses some of its richness, some of its saturation when it dries down, and I think that's, again, a little sad in my opinion, because I wanted this plummy maroony brown. I am thinking though that that is probably something that one could remedy by mixing it with another color, another, yeah, plummy, maroonish, maybe even like a burgundy brown, something like that. I do think that it doesn't need much, I think, to change. Maybe we set this on a fancy plate. This is some sort of rich chocolate cake, I think. And maybe because it's Silent Night, we'll add just some... Yeah, and I wanted to have at least one darker color in this lineup so that it, yeah, can provide some contrast within the colors, but yeah, I think that's really, really nice. Let me know if you have suggestions for a color that I could mix this with to bring out these kinds of tones here. And yeah, once this is dry, maybe you'll see what I mean with that it loses some of this saturation. But yeah, those are those. And then hopefully now going on to the next page, I'm not gonna mess that up too much. I don't think so though. The next color is another Tono and Limbs ink. This is called Noble Spirit, and it has this really beautiful, I hope you can see, bear in a tree, and I don't know, there's something really charming about that imagery. To me, this is the color, and I can't get the bottle open. This is the color of a shy winter sunrise. It is really soft, a soft pinkish color. It is actually very much lighter than what I expected. And the thing about Tono and Limbs inks is that sometimes it's hard to find swatches online. And sometimes you do find swatches, and depending on what paper they're made on, your experience may vary a lot with how the color turns out. And I inked it in my Twsbi Eco, and I put in a medium nib, and it's still very light and dry, unfortunately. So that's a little bit of a bummer. Some of the, I think that it was from the Australian website Desk Bandit, who stocks a lot of Tono and Limbs inks. I saw a swatch and it looked several shades darker and had this wonderful chromo shading, and I don't know, I don't feel like the two match, like my expectation of the color and what it actually is like now that I have it don't quite line up, but that happens sometimes, I guess, in the inking game. And of course, usually I'm a little bit more hesitant to buy bottles when I don't know the color, when I usually go for samples first. But with Tono and Limbs, sometimes it's tricky to wait to get a sample, and some of the more special releases, you know, don't come out as samples anywhere. And then they sell out so fast that, you know, you potentially miss out on certain colors. And yeah, so I decided this time to, yeah, take a little bit of a gamble and buy bottles, and this is this is what happens. Now, don't get me wrong, it is beautiful, and here on this cream Tomoe River paper, it shows up actually pretty well, and it might show up, I think it's a little darker than what I'm seeing on the camera right now. So there's that. But it's a dusky mauvey light color. I don't know, it's not gray. It's a pinkish gray though. I guess that's what I mean with dusky. And then I did fill that also in this Fonte Carapo brush pen. I think I've shared this before on my channel because I was thinking this would be a lovely color, as light as it is, to be able to use as a marker in instances. So yeah, that's really fun. So this is a great way to use lighter colors, I think, because yeah, it's great. And I had Tono and Lim's Dear Bear in this beforehand, and I was able to wash all the yellow out. It took a little bit of time to get it out of the fiber of the brush tip, but obviously it has just a regular cartridge, so that is easily changeable. So I'm thinking I might get more of these. They're a little pricey compared to just buying a marker, but they are just a fun little thing, and yeah, it's nice. It's a nice plaything when it comes to inks. And we're continuing our color palette with another Tono and Lims ink. This is from their souvenir line, and it's called Kai Waikiki. And I could have looked up where this is coming from or what that means, but I didn't. To me, this is just, first of all, it's my favorite kind of green. It's this minty, sagey green that still has some saturation to it. I know sage green is not really there's a lot of variance in what people call a sage green. And so maybe to some this wouldn't quite qualify as a sage green. It's that sort of sea glass color. Maybe that's another way to describe it. And I've been looking for a well-flowing ink in this color. I tried a few, but Kobe had two and they were really dry. And then there was one from Organic Studio that was also really dry. This is flowing excellently so far. And I have that inked. I have it inked in my Pilot Custom Heritage 912 with a soft medium fine nib, although mine is ground down to a 0.4 nib, so it's a little thinner writing than the usual soft fine medium. Tono and Lims. And I felt like this went well with this winter palette because it's the color of crispy frost without being too cold, and I also felt like it paired beautifully with the other colors. And I can see myself using this quite a bit. And then I don't know if I just put in a 0.4 there because it's not the typical nib size. And I think I've mentioned before how I slightly regret having this ground down, not because I had it ground down by Kirk Spear, and I think he did a fantastic job. So there's nothing wrong with that. It's just, I think I wish it was a little thicker. I think it's not scratchy, but it has this, you can feel how thin, how pointed the nib is, and I don't think I enjoy that very much, but oh well, this is the first time I'm swatching the Noble Spirit where we get some of that chromo shading to come out. Yeah, see, that is gorgeous. Look how beautiful that is. So here's the Kai Waikiki. Lovely. It's, yeah, no, I think it's coming across pretty accurately. And I'll show you everything once it's dry as well, so no worries there. And then I have one more ink for the sort of fall palette, not fall. I have one more ink for the winter palette, and then I have a special mention that I want to do that is outside of this palette. Okay. The next ink is another Sailor Shikiori color, and this is Sailor Shikiori Yutsubame. And again, this was one that I bought as cartridges and then got some into the sample vial. You just puncture the cartridge with a blunt syringe and then you can suck out the ink. And yeah, I just find that very helpful in trying out colors. Sailor, Vanness, where I usually like to buy my ink samples, doesn't carry Sailor inks, which is a bummer. So this is how I choose to try out new colors. And Sailor just came out with several new colors, or colors that they haven't released as cartridges just yet. And I bought these on Atlas Stationeries, and I have a code so you can save 10%. And sometimes they have sales going on where that bumps up to 20%, so you can save a little on your ink. And I filled this up. I inked this in my Leonardo Momento 0 in the angel skin color. And I think this pen is so beautiful. So I'm still uncertain how I feel about both the grip section as well as the weight of this. This is a pretty heavy pen, at least compared to some of my other pens. Oh, and I'm spelling that incorrectly. Some people might not find this very heavy, but it's very thick resin, which is really cool. Love how it looks. Nardo. Whoops. And yeah, I just wanted to give it another go. And then this beautiful, it's a beautiful, yeah, mauvey pink, I would say. For this wintry palette, I thought this is a wonderful color to represent some rosy cheeks and rosy noses from being outside in the fresh, cold air and from the excitement of playing in the snow. I thought that went really well together. And even though it is relatively light, it's still very legible. And this, I don't know what's happening here with the with the hat. Maybe we'll give her some pigtails. I don't know. Yeah. There you go. I don't know. It's a little funny, but you get the gist. And let me hold that up close. I have, oh, and there's the label from the notebook. I am getting not hard starts, but the first word or so is a little darker than the rest, even though I feel like the Leonardo caps pretty securely. I'm not quite sure what is going on there, but yeah, these lower words are maybe a little bit more indicative of what it would look like in most writing. But yeah, very beautiful. And it's also a little cousin to the Noble Spirit, although the Noble Spirit goes more into the purple direction, whereas the Yutsubame is definitely more heading towards the pink. But isn't that a lovely pink? It's just, yeah, it's just muted a little bit. It has that lived-in feeling that I love so much about colors. You know, old children's books that are printed and have aged with the paper, you know, that kind of feel. That's something that I, yeah, really, really enjoy. And this is the special mention. This color is not really part of the wintry color palette, but it is also a new ink, so I wanted to mention it here. And this is Tono and Limbs from their Fixation line, and this is the color Tree. Now the Fixation line is pigment inks, so these are waterproof, and I keep knocking over the sample vial. I am always up for trying waterproof inks because I like using them in combination with watercolors and markers in my illustrations or in journaling. And so when I saw that Tono Limbs made some, I was like, well, let me try this. And I'm glad I did. So far, this is very nice. This is, I think, as far as I can tell from the very little use I've gotten out of this so far, it's one of my wettest flowing pigment inks. It's wonderful. And I have it inked in my Twsbi Diamond Mini with a fine nib. And this tree color is lighter than Diatramentis Document Brown, but darker than Diamine's Foreverline Butterscotch. So it's a really nice in-between color, which is fun. They unfortunately don't have a black, which I'm like, why? Why would you make pigment inks and not offer a black? Same problem with the pigment line, the waterproof line from Lennon Toolbar. They also don't have a black, which is a shame because I tried their Firmament color, and that one too is so well flowing and really, really waterproof. I am one of the, I think, very few people that doesn't like the Diamine Forever line all that much. I don't know. I feel like whenever I use it, the lines look soapy, and I don't know if that makes sense to anyone else. So, yeah. Not sure. This is... Usually I prefer the Diatramentis, but this is really nice. This is so well flowing. Just love it. And it's, yeah, just great in this Twsbi Mini. Oops, sorry for the clinking noise. Here it is. Just really charming brown. Not too dark, not too light. Just really, really lovely, and I'm thinking that's probably gonna be an ink that I have inked in some capacity all the time. And it does still go really nicely with this lineup, I think. It's not too, because it's not too orange, I think, you know, these two obviously have a similar thing going on, so that's nice. This is a little lighter still, so if I want something lighter and more subdued, then I'll go for this. And obviously this has the added benefit of being a pigment ink. But yeah, it's very... we have one Lennon toolbar, and then we have, yeah, 2 Sailor Shikiori, and the rest is Tono and Limbs. That's how that played out, but yeah, really, really fun. Let me know if you have tried any of these colors, or if you're going to try any of these colors. I'm excited to journal with these and draw with these. I think we're gonna just go through one more time. So here's the Lennon Toolbar Sesame Oil, which I picked because it reminds me of deer on a snowy field or dry branches. And then we had the Sailor Shikiori Yukiusagi, just the color of snow-filled air with that lovely earthiness that comes through, really powdery blue. And then Tono and Lim's Silent Night, a brown with maroonish undertones that just feel like a decadent dessert when you warm up inside and just need something rich and sweet. Then we had Tono and Lim's Noble Spirit, this very pale, and it's coming off a lot more pink on the camera. I'm noticing now it's a little darker and a little more dusky purple than it comes up here. But yeah, it just reminded me of a winter sunrise. And then Tono and Lim's Kai Waikiki, the color of crispy frost. Just a lovely, more saturated sagey green, if you will, or sea glass. And then last but not least, Sailor Shikiori, or Blast for the winter lineup anyway. Sailor Shikiori Yutsubame, this really wonderful vintage pink for the rosy cheeks and rosy noses when you're outside playing in the snow. And the special mention of the Tono and Lim's Pigment Ink Fixation in the color Tree. And they had, I don't quite remember how many, but they had a couple greens in this line, and I think some blue as well. So yeah, I'll link below Atlas where you can get the Sailor cartridges, and if you use my code Maike10 you can get some percentage off, 10% most of the time. And then now with the, I don't know if they're gonna do something else for Black Friday. They just had a fountain pen day deal going on, so they might do something for Black Friday. So I'll link that. And then the Tono and Lim's inks, I feel like more shops are getting Tono and Lim's inks in stock, but if you want to try out samples, I would check Vanness. And then Yoseka Stationery also has Tono and Lim's bottles, and I got mine from the Little Craft Place, which is a shop in Texas. They just got these new in, and so they had a lot of bottles in stock that were sold out elsewhere. So I have all of this linked below if you want to check it out. And then I also want to point out this glass muddler that I love using for my ink swatches is from a little Etsy shop, so I'll have that linked as well, so you can find the things if you want to find them. Yeah, let me know, what's your favorite color from this lineup? Are you gonna check any of these out? What do you have planned for the winter season? Any specific colors that you feel like are speaking to you, or that scream holidays, winter holidays to you? Let me know. I love to hear what everybody is inking up and thinking about, and we can have a chat in the comments. All right, thank you so much for sharing this time with me, and until next time, happy journaling.